GovX show is supported by Forrester, helping government organisations perform at their best. Visit forrester.com to learn more.
Welcome back to the GovX show, and apologies for squinting alluringly at you. Sunshine in November, who'd have guessed? I'm James Smith, I'm the Content Director here at GovX Digital, and as we count down to the conference of the same name in a couple of weeks, it's beginning to get a little bit busy around here. So it's always a pleasure to take a step away from the intro and share some of the amazing conversations that we've been having with our friends in both central and local government here in the UK and overseas. So today we're joined by Mark Gray, who's the Director of Digital Operations and Commercial with the Crown Prosecution Service. And we managed to talk to him about the broad scope of his role within CPS and how 2020 has been one of those years that keeps on giving in terms of testing challenges, and his thoughts also on the importance of citizen experience design of government service delivery. So let's hear what you had to say. So Mark, a very warm welcome to the GovX show. It's really great to have you join us today.
Thank you. Delighted to be part of the event.
Smashing. So you've got quite a long job title. So you're the Director of Digital Operations and Commercial at the Crown Prosecution Service, which sounds like a pretty broad remit. Could you give us a sense of what's involved across that and how it all hangs together?
Yeah, certainly. So essentially, I run three functions for the CPS. So the digital function is responsible for all our technology, as you might expect. The commercial function deals with our procurement and contract management of any services that we buy from the market. And then the operations function is responsible for all the day-to-day business of the organisation. So I work in partnership with colleagues who are the legal directors who deal with the kind of the lawyering side of what we do, and I'm responsible for the operational performance beyond that.
So the digital part of the piece of the puzzle. Do you have a background in digital? How did you get involved in that side of things at CPS?
I do. So this is my first public sector job, albeit I've been at the CPS now for coming up to 4.5 years. Prior to that, I was most recently at Barclays Bank, where I was running a big program to digitize their retail mortgage business.
And so what's some of the, I suppose, the standout sort of achievements and projects that you've been working on during your time with CPS?
So it's been a big period of transformation. So prior to when I joined, so in the first half of the last decade, the organisation moved its kind of core business workflows from being paper-based to being computer-based, but it wasn't able, partly because of austerity, partly because of other challenges, it wasn't able to invest heavily in the technology through that period. And so it's been a real period of transformation of our technology. So all the services that we have moved from local data centers to cloud-based environments. We've moved from a single supplier model to a multi-supplier environment in keeping with kind of government best practice. We've looked to innovate significantly and started piloting tools like artificial intelligence to help our colleagues, and we've digitized all the bits of the process that weren't kind of digital before. So for instance, the transfer of large volume kind of multimedia evidence. So the CCTV, the body-worn video, your or my social media records have all moved now onto digital portals rather than being transferred around the justice system on physical discs. So it's been a big kind of transformation agenda.
It sounds fascinating to be involved with that. It's a very interesting sort of time in the evolution of government systems. What's your sense of the future direction of travel? Where will your priorities as an organisation sort of be focused on beyond this year?
So I think our next priorities in the digital space are probably threefold. So there is ongoing work to really drive innovation. So I touched on it earlier, but there's a real appetite in our organisation to tackle some of the challenges that the digitization of society presents to the criminal justice process by using more innovative tools. There's something about business process transformation that's enabled now by the quality of the foundations of our technology, and that will be a big focus. And then thirdly, there's something about the cross-justice working with our partners, particularly in the police and the court service, to have more shared systems and a better join up. All, of course, underpinned by some of the the essentials that today's environment requires, like good security and keeping one's infrastructure up to date.
So I guess before we sort of dive into it, obviously you're going to be talking a little bit about sort of managing through crisis, and certainly 2020 has been a wonderful opportunity to sort of refine that as a topic to talk about at the conference. What has been, I suppose, the biggest challenges for your team over the course of the year to date?
I think a wonderful opportunity is an interesting description of 2020. I think it's presented enormous challenges for all of us, of course, both professionally and personally. I think organisationally, our biggest challenge has been the flow of work through the criminal justice system. So the CPS as an organisation is able to work digitally, and so we're able to switch as necessary to the vast majority of our colleagues working from home. But of course, the one big and essential part of the justice system that is much more difficult to digitise is the court hearings. And so particularly in the first wave of lockdown in kind of March, April, May, the court capacity for the country was much reduced, and our colleagues in the court service have done a sterling job since then in opening large numbers of courts in a COVID secure fashion. But of course, there's that kind of accumulated backlog, and so excuse me, and so from our perspective, that has created a backlog of work and lots of extra pressure on our teams to be moving those through. From a digital perspective, the biggest challenge was probably an immediate one. So how to make sure that our remote access infrastructure was scaled up to accommodate all of our users being from home. We were able to do that within the first kind of week or so of lockdown, and switch from about 500 people a day working from home to 5,000, which was obviously something of a feat. And then working with partners across the justice system to, for instance, embed the use of video hearings into the court system to help with some of those pressures. On top of that, I guess the pressure that everyone has been facing, of course, is to support colleagues across the country as much as possible in a remote environment, and in times where everybody's well-being and resilience is being absolutely tested to the max.
How's your management style sort of evolved in the face of the challenges that we've had this year?
So I think we've had to adapt quite significantly. I think I'm somebody who's very bubbly and energetic, and that's quite easy to convey in an office environment or a court environment where you're standing next to the person you're chatting to. It's obviously much more difficult to convey from the end of a computer screen. And I think also, as I touched on earlier, we've had to obviously be very conscious of the competing demands and pressures on people. So, personally, I spent kind of like many people, I spent a couple of months working and homeschooling in parallel. And that, of course, presents all kinds of challenges. And so I think the biggest change in my leadership style has been communicate. I would always do that, of course, but it's making sure that you're actively keeping in touch with everybody throughout the leadership team, throughout the wider team, and making sure that you're taking time with people over and above the kind of formal sort of meeting environments that you know, for that. Yeah. That quick ad hoc chat that normally you might do by the coffee machine or as you're walking to a meeting or a call, making sure that you still make time for those opportunities and those important conversations in the virtual world.
What's your sense of, I suppose, as a manager, sort of managing the introverts and the extroverts within your team? Because obviously they had very different experiences of the lockdown. It's been interesting to sort of talk through the implications for teams with a number of our speakers. What's that been like for you?
I think it's a really good question, and I think the important thing has been to provide a range of tools that suit everybody, and that's both kind of, you know, sort of formal well-being tools that are available, but also the informal things. So, you know, within my teams, we've had coffee mornings, we've had quizzes, we've had charity days, we've had you know, lots of extra socials, but we've also had a much more comprehensive program of kind of making sure everybody's getting one-to-one contact as well. Because I think, as well as the introvert extrovert point that you describe, you know, different people have experienced different phases of this very differently. We're obviously conscious of the you know, the particular effects especially in the spring on some of our Black and ethnic minority colleagues, particularly with the combination of COVID and the Black Lives Matter movement. Conscious of the pressures on some of our younger colleagues who might not, who might be working in kind of shared flats or whatever, where they have to kind of work from their bedroom. Conscious that, you know, some people love working from home, some people don't, and actually really that regular communication and checking in with people as to how they individually are feeling and not just kind of sweeping assumptions has been really key.
And so I suppose looking ahead, what have been some of the successes in terms of the new ways of working and collaborating across the team, which you hope to sort of build upon in the coming months and years?
So I think, you know, most obviously, Microsoft Teams has become the lifeblood of our organization, and actually has made the perennial challenge here. My teams are all geographically spread around the country, and we've been in that classic situation that many people will relate to, where, you know, you've got 10 people in a meeting room and one person on the end of a phone, and that person can't really effectively contribute and is very frustrated. And actually, you know, everybody being remotely based has been a great sort of equalizer in that respect. And so I think there's some good learnings there. I think some of the communication pieces, undoubtedly also good learnings. And then, you know, I touched earlier on the use of video hearings for court proceedings. Now, you know, that will always need to be a judicial decision of appropriateness for any given hearing, but actually there's an opportunity there to make a more efficient and effective use of everybody's time, every participant in the criminal justice system, by, you know, where appropriate, enabling them to appear virtually, and so saving the travelling time and the waiting time that you know, that can sometimes be associated with physical attendance.
So I suppose as we sort of come to the end of this little taster of an interview, as you look back over the past 10 months or so, what would be the advice you'd give an earlier sort of 2020 version of yourself as you were preparing for the year ahead?
Wow. Don't get too excited on New Year's Day. It might not be such a good one. Might be one bit of advice. But no, seriously, I think it's about making time for yourself and other people from a resilience perspective, and recognizing that you know, that leading in crisis, and indeed working in crisis more generally, or indeed living in crisis, is hard, and might be hard at different stages in different ways that you've you're not necessarily prepared for. I think it's the importance of having those kind of those escapes, those contacts, those periods of downtime, and making sure that you're getting that both within a working day and more generally. And I think it's, keep calm. There's what do they say? This too shall pass. And yes, this year has been really difficult for everybody and every organisation. But it's plugging away, keeping everybody else positive, and that kind of relentless positive belief that that we will end up in a better place, and that the challenges will be overcome, is really important to retaining both your own morale, but more importantly the morale of the teams and organizations that one is leading.
And perhaps last question before we bring this to a close. Obviously, you've gamely agreed to join one of our panel sessions alongside Anthony Collard from HMRC and Martin Kavets from the digital advisor at the Estonian government, looking at citizen experience design. And I'm just keen to sort of get your sense of why that matters as a subject of focus. I mean, it's obvious in many respects, but what does it sort of trigger for you when you think in terms of citizen experience design?
I think it's hugely important. I think every day more and more, the way in which the typical citizen interacts with government, whatever part of government or indeed the wider public sector, is digital. And so making sure that experience is positive, is efficient, is joined up indeed with other channels if digital isn't the whole answer, is just really important from the point of view of making sure that taxpayers and citizens are getting value for money, from making sure that they're having a good experience and have confidence in the services that the public sector is bringing them, and most importantly is making an efficient and effective use of that citizens' time. Most of us, many of the reasons for which we interact with government are not things we particularly want to do, and so making it as slick and easy as possible is really important for our collective well-being as a nation.
When I started as a journalist covering digital government 20 years ago, it was the veneer, whereas now really it's just government. I mean, sort of the expansion of the digital channels and the level of participation in them. It's core. It's very front and center of the citizen experience, and it's great to have you, as I said, being part of that session. So once again, thanks so much for spending a little bit of time sharing a bit about your background and current focus with our audience, and certainly looking forward to our session in a couple of weeks.
Not at all, and likewise, very much looking forward to the session.
So if you'd like to hear more from Mark on his experience of leading his team through the challenges of 2020, as well as tune into our panel session on citizen experience design, then Google your way, apparently other search engines are available, to GovX Digital 2020 and register today for free if you work in the public sector. Mark will be joined on our virtual panel by Martin Kavets, who's the digital advisor of the Estonian government, along with Anthony Collard from HMRC. It's going to be a great session, but then, hand on heart, they're all great sessions at GovX Digital. Okay, got to go. Looking forward to catching up in the next show. But until then, let's play that funky music.